talk about ex-offenders or previously incarcerated persons or whatever, they need to know exactly who you're addressing this to. A lot of times in the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland, you have different community organizations that may say brothers helping brothers or sisters helping sisters. But if it's for a prisoner reentry program, you want to state prisoner reentry or ex-offenders or um, former inmates, something that talks about the population that you're serving. One of the debates that is out there right now, I know that for the city of Baltimore, we call our program the Baltimore City Ex-Offender Initiative. And there are many people who cringe at that name, ex-offender. They want to use previously incarcerated persons or some other name that sort of talks about former prisoners. But we needed to label it ex-offender because we wanted people to understand who exactly we're working with and who we're trying to help. The other thing is dealing with other groups who look at it and may say, hey, they're not ex-offenders, they're offenders. I'm a former victim who was assaulted, and this they're not an ex-offender. I will always remember that tragic incident. So sort of working within these groups and establishing the population that you're working with. And also be aware of groups and media that will use that will use different names as far as labeling, what you're doing. The quote that we have in here is organization helps ex-cons. We had an article that came out in our city newspaper, the Baltimore Sun, and they, basically said this, center helps ex-cons, and it's very attention-grabbing, headline-grabbing, so that people will look at it. It was actually a two-page article, and even though it talked about a lot of the great work that we do, you know, we don't like to refer to our customers as ex-cons. It's sort of looked at as derogatory. But you'll also see that, when it goes out to print or even on the radio and television, sometimes these things cannot be controlled. Okay, the next slide.
Okay.
What what message? Well, one of the things is a lot of organizations fail to write a report or some sort of brief regarding the problem or the issue that's in their community. You, you know, we. I'm sorry.
I think I need to remind folks to please mute your phones. Again, it's *6 to mute your phone or press the mute button on your phone. If you have a question, press *7 to unmute that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, this is very very helpful if you can write out a report. Even though we live in our cities, we live in our communities, and we understand this is a big problem. I'm here in the Mondawmin area of Baltimore City. I see this problem every day, and I sometimes I think people understand what I'm talking about, but when I go to the Eastern Shore, when I go to Western Maryland, that message isn't always understood. So having some sort of brief or report to kind of show, look, that Baltimore City has 10,000 people coming back from the state's prison system. We have 20,000 people under mandatory supervision through parole and probation. We have 100,000 people coming in and out of our local detention center. These are real big issues that need to be taken care of. And having it written out like that, and the cost as well, $24,000 to incarcerate someone over a 1 year period. It really shakes and wakes up someone when they see that on written paper. The other thing about that is, when I say write a report, you should have an executive summary or some sort of brief, especially when you present it to high-level officials, because they're not going to have the time to read a full report. But having a short brief to sort of highlight those main issues and that actually what you're trying to get achieved with your initiative is very, very helpful. Okay, going to the next slide. I think we have another poll.
We do have another poll question. And again, we'd like to know in terms of what kind of outreach you want to do, who it is that you're trying to reach when in your message. Are you looking to reach more media or service providers, community members, faith-based organizations? click on more than one of the providers. Um, it looks like we have a pretty even split here that you're trying to reach everyone with your message. Okay, so that's kind of good to know. We will try to cover all of those points during the presentation.
Okay. So the next slide is selling your message. And selling your message, you need to fit your message to the customer that you're putting it out to. Are you are you talking to a funder? Are you talking to a group of ex-offenders? Are you talking to the public media? The way that you craft your message is going to be different for each one of these. In Baltimore City, we have a number of prisoner reentry programs that, you know, the director and the case management staff will talk to their clients one way. But when you're talking to funders or the public media, you need to address them differently. And you need to be very thankful for the funders and public media because they're the ones who are going to help sell your message to others. In fact, the funders, you're looking at money to keep your program alive and growing, and you need to justify to them why this issue is so important. And secondly, you need to also look at um, how this is different in your community. In Baltimore City, we have a multi-million reentry center here in the center of Baltimore, but you know, there are other communities in the rural and suburb areas that also want a reentry center. Well, you can't always do that. The main reason why we have a reentry center is because most of the ex-offenders are coming back to Baltimore City. And but one of the main things that you can do is set up memorandums of understanding or some sort of working agreement between other local and state agencies to sort of assist your customers. One of our great partnerships is with Child Support Enforcement Administration, and getting them to come over here and work with our customers on modifying their child support, doing paternity testing, or even getting their work restricted driver's license back. These are big selling points that don't cost us anything, and they're more than happy because they've been looking for this population. The other one is Baltimore City Community College, which does GED classes. They're more than happy to do GED classes in our center because they've got funding for this, and if we're able to keep their students and clients happy with all the other services, they're more likely to complete the training and complete the education part. Okay, next slide.
We have another poll for folks, and the poll that we have is to kind of know who who you're currently partnering with. And again, this is not, it's a multiple choice. If you're partnering with more than one of these organizations, you can click on more than one of them. Okay, it looks like almost everyone is partnering with different service organizations or nonprofits. Looks like what the least that we have are folks who are partnering with district or circuit courts. And Felix, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of find out at the last one, those organizations that aren't working with the circuit courts, why aren't you working with them? And those that are, why are you working with them?
And again, if you want to unmute your phone, you can do *7 to unmute if you have a reply why you aren't working with circuit courts or district courts. Does anyone have a comment on that? Or those of, I see that a couple of you are. Those of you who are, do you have a comment on that relationship? Do we have a shy group today?
I have a comment.
Okay.
This is Margaret Franklin from West Dallas. We're actually just getting started. We do plan to work with the district and county, Dallas County courts. We don't have that in place as yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, what was your name?
Nova Franklin.
Nova? So
Nova, M like Mary, ELV like Victory A.
Okay, Mova. Who are you currently partnering with?
Dallas Police Department, Dallas County Probation and Parole is in the works. Um, I'm sorry, probation. We don't have parole as yet. We do anticipate working with them.
Okay. Well, have you thought about partnering, like with your local workforce investment board, or with child support, or some of the other, maybe city or county agencies?
Well, again, we're just getting started, so much of what we would plan to do is in that planning phase.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I'm certain that we would be interested in working with child care, workforce, as well as I like the notion of an MOU to help to get the driver's licenses or the work restrictions released for driver's licenses. I'm sure we'll work toward that.
Well, excellent. I guess one of the big things that's coming out of this prison reentry activity, a lot of the funding for prisoner reentry has come through the Department of Labor, and
Okay.
so I strongly encourage any organization to partner with their local workforce investment board, their local one-stop career center, because most of the Department of Labor activities, you're going to have to get a letter of support from them in order to even submit a proposal for funding. And I can tell you, even in this last year, the city of Baltimore has actually applied for two funding opportunities through the Department of Labor this year, and both around prisoner reentry and training of ex-prisoners. So there's a ton of opportunities. Also, to let you know, Mov, I'm actually I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas,
Oh,
so it's
great.
right down the street from you.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but
great. And I used to live in Baltimore.
oh really? Okay, small world. Okay, well, going to the next slide.
Okay.
How to sell your message. You again, you want to partner with as many organizations as possible, and actually, a lot of the ex-offender organizations you want to partner with as well. Uh, One of the big challenges in Baltimore City, we have a number of prisoner reentry programs. From the Reentry Partnership, if you've ever seen um, Omar and Pete, the video, that's based on the Reentry Partnership run by Catholic Charities. We have Jericho Reentry Initiative, which received a $660,000 President's Reentry Initiative grant. We have Goodwill Industries, which has their Seats program, which is a prisoner reentry program. We have a ton of other prisoner reentry programs. But a lot of times, these programs try to run in their own little silo, or they don't like to share information. But one of the things that we did with the reentry center is we said, look, you don't have to share your information for us, but we want you to bring your customers to us as well, because with you also looking after this client, it's only going to be successful for both of us. And so we may be able to provide these other services such as GED, bus passes, child support, and a whole list of other things. But by you being in the community and working on the case management part, you're going to also make us look successful as well as us make you look successful. So partner with the other ex-offender organizations. Then also utilize other friendly groups like universities, churches, government agencies. Another great success in Baltimore is that we work with the University of Maryland, and one of their schools, the School of Law, is actually sending their students here to do expungement and child support and pardon workshops for our clients. And so they're here every Friday. The students get a grade to do that, and the students actually learn a lot. Many of them want to be prosecutors, and they don't see the problems that ex-offenders have to overcome when coming back into the community. When you're young, you just say, hey, do the right thing, get an education, and everything will work out. But by partnering with these groups, they can really learn a lot more and learn about new services. And then just other groups like the police department, the health department, and the workforce investment board, juvenile services. Go back to the health department. Just this last week, we had a prisoner reentry health summit. We were only anticipating about 100 people, but we found out we got almost 200 people to attend this health summit. And from everything from STD testing to substance abuse programs, mental health, there's a number of government agencies that are having their own little uh, public safety or prisoner reentry programming that they don't know what the other department is doing. People think that because you work for the city or because you work with the state, you know all of the programs that are going on as far as prisoner reentry in your government institution. And a lot of times it's not like that. We only know what's happening in our one little agency, and if our agency is huge, we may not know everything that's happening in our agency. So just pulling these other partners to the table and seeing how you can utilize their services as well as as well as they utilize your services. Next slide. Next slide is sort of also continuing to sell your message. Use your non-traditional partners. When people see me, they expect to hear from me about prisoner reentry. They already know, here comes Felix, the ex-offender guy. But when you use other organizations that they don't expect to hear this, it makes a bigger impact. One of our best partnerships is with victims' rights and advocacy organizations. They know that over 90% of the inmates are going to be released back in the community, and the last thing that they want is an ex-inmate to repeat their same crime again over. And so some of these groups, they actually go into the prison system or they go into the community organizations to talk about their experiences, and it makes a big difference. If you see some of these inmates, I mean, there's a lot of tears happening, and they see how that one little 5-minute snapshot of what they did can affect someone for the rest of their lives. Child support enforcement. Again, I can't talk about a better partner. Policy Studies Incorporated in Baltimore City is our child support vendor. And a lot of people, the understanding is child support enforcement, they're trying to lock me up for non-payment of child support. But in Baltimore, we've been very, very fortunate that child support has said, look, we've been looking for these guys. If you can help to get employment and get these other services, it's only going to be a win-win situation for us. We don't want to incarcerate them. We want to help them become successful members of the community. We want them paying their child support. So we work together in making that happen. And then also your legal and bar associations to see if there's any way that they can help in the legal needs. One of our current partnerships is with the Public Defender's Office, but also some of the other pro bono legal activities that can go on in the city of Baltimore in helping ex-prisoners deal with um, their bankruptcy or their debt situations. So a lot of them have legal issues. I've had some call me in need of assistance because they don't want to go anywhere. They don't trust anyone. So, but because of our reputation over here, they don't mind calling to find out what happens if I go in. I was in this hit and run accident, and I need to know what I should do. It makes a big difference when someone listens and works with them. Moving to the next slide, education. You also want to educate your legislators and funders about reentry. Um, there's not a lot of organizations. Again, they don't they don't effectively reach out to their local and state officials about prisoner reentry. Um, do they know who you are? What if if they don't know who you are they going to be there for you when you need it? A lot of individuals, a lot of good prisoner reentry programs, they make a solid connection with their local legislators. In the city of Baltimore, we have a prisoner reentry steering committee for the city, and our two chairs, Delegate Salima Marriott and Senator Verna Jones, are the head of the Baltimore City delegation that goes to the state capitol. In fact, Senator Verna Jones is the head of the Black Caucus for the state of Maryland. And so I make sure that I keep in contact with both of them, but also that if I need their help, they're able to be there for me. And I'll tell you, both of them, as far as funding for the reentry center here in Baltimore, they last year they put it on their backs and they basically pushed it through to make sure that we had funding to continue this fantastic center. But then also on the back end, be prepared if you're asking them for favors, they're going to also ask you for favors. So they're going to be sending you customers like you wouldn't believe, and they're going to want them to be helped. Now, not all the customers are going to be able to be helped, but you need to do your best and be understanding that if you utilize that official, that they're also going to use you. Next slide. Legislation and education. Also, you need to educate yourself. A lot of people don't understand when introducing legislation. Are you sending it to the appropriate committee? Are you sending it? Is it being sent to um, well, the legislature that you're having introduce this? Is it going to an environmental committee? Is it being sent to a budget committee, or is it being sent to? If you're asking for something from public safety, is it being sent to public safety? So you need to understand how that system works. Um, and also, if you're requesting for funding, a lot of organizations and advocacy officials say more money needs to be put into public safety. More money needs to be put into prison reentry. That's great. I agree with you. A lot of other officials agree with you. Where is it going to come from? So you need to find out where in the state budget this money can come from. In the state of Maryland, one of the great things that we have here is a program called the Maryland Correctional Enterprises. And this is actually employment for the inmates. They make uh, the desks and chairs and other goodies that they can sell to the state and city agencies as well as nonprofit organizations. And they actually make a profit for the state of Maryland. Before this money was being sent to the Maryland General Fund to pay for repairs and roads and additions to schools. But one of the things that we were effectively able to do was kind of say, look, some of this money needs to be put back into the prison system and be utilized for the inmates. So $1 million was given back this last year to the Department of Public Safety and, well, actually to the Maryland State Department of Education for prisoner reentry. And so now we're working with around 200 to 300 inmates and getting them connected to employment and services. And then also, if you're introducing legislation or policy regarding a certain agency, has the agency even been informed of the change that you're trying to make? If you're asking them for money, have you contacted them? Because if they haven't been contacted, they're probably going to fight you tooth and nail until they understand exactly what you're trying to do. And don't expect legislation to be done in 1 year. You usually need to rock the boat for a while, so it'll take several years for it to be passed. And then lastly, have you partnered with someone on the committee that it's at? You know, if your legislation may be sent to another committee, and so you need to find people who are friendly to your cause on that committee. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
Okay, some other do's and don'ts. Have you selected the right official to introduce your bill? This goes with the third point on this slide. Is a lot of times, um, well, if you have a junior official introducing your piece of legislation, it's a big difference from having that person or having the chair of the committee introduce legislation. And the other thing about that is you don't always want the official who is the most ex-offender friendly person uh, working for you. I'll tell you again, my chair is Delegate Marriott has been a fantastic chair, a fantastic supporter of what we do. But Baltimore City, because we have uh, a, the largest number of inmates coming back to the city, the Eastern Shore and Western Maryland and Southern Maryland, they don't always understand the problems that are going over here, and they expect Delegate Marriott to introduce legislation like that. So you want to look out and reach out to some other counties or some other people that may be having these similar problems, not as heavy as yours, but are understanding of the problem that your city or your area is going through. Um, all right, next slide. And the next slide is just other available resources.
Yes, we wanted to highlight some available resources for everyone that you could reach in trying to reach media, um, different as well as public organizations within or public groups within your community. The National Reentry Media Outreach Campaign has a great publication called Reenter Magazine, which has tools and information for educating the public about reentry. They also have sample flyers that you can use, and they have a couple of videos that we hear that we know are great to use both for local media, local public access television, and local television stations, as well as to get groups of people together. And they have some snippets of videos that have been done, documentaries that have been done and aired on PBS stations, as well as videos that you can get copies of that include To Serve This Present Age, which is targeting faith-based organizations, and Outside the Walls, which has general information on reentry. And if you we have a link here to their media gallery, and reentryMediaOutreach.org is their website. So that's another kind of great resource that you have available to you. Does anyone have any specific questions for Felix? Again, it's star 7 to unmute your phone. We don't have any specific questions right now. We are going to hand over the floor to Michelle Boykins, who is the Director of Communications at the National Crime Prevention Council, and she'll be focusing specifically about educating the press or the media about reentry. And again, we will try to have some questions, time for questions at the end of her presentation. Again, I ask you to star 6 to mute your phone, star 7 to unmute it when we have some time for questions.
Thank you, Jean. I think that one of the great things about Felix's part of the presentation is that you can use some of the information he talked about in communicating your message and the kind of things that you need to put together, the backgrounders and so forth, that you can actually apply those when you're looking to do press outreach as well. From NCPC standpoint, we do a lot of things where we go out on a national level, but we also provide people the opportunity to kind of localize those things, the things that make the national issue more relevant locally. So hopefully some of what's in this presentation will help you figure out how to do that from a local perspective, and also think about how to use some of those great media tools that are out there at the media outreach videos that they have out there as well. It's really important for you to pay attention to trying to sell your message. What you're trying to do is you're trying to inform the public, but you're also trying to let them know about the significant impact that doing things the right way can have in your community. In PR, you always want to show why the issue is relevant and important to the listeners or viewers or the readers of the press. You have to think about it from a journalist's perspective. They still have to sell the papers. They have to put things on that are engaging to their consumers. So your job is to really help them do that and become a resource for them. You really have to, in order to become a resource for them and to become a point of contact for them, you have to help break down the issue into how they can understand it, and then how they can make their consumers understand it as well. So think about that when you're moving forward. Landing on Oprah is not a strategy. We hear time and time again people go, oh, if I could just get Oprah to pay attention to this issue, or if I could just get that coverage in the Washington Post. And even if that's part of your overall strategy, you also need a lot of other things that lead up to that. Is Oprah going to get you the target audience that you really want? Is Oprah going to help you reach the general public and reach legislators? You have to think about those kind of things in the process as well. And understand that coverage is not an end in itself. You really need to find the coverage across the board, television, radio, print, and so forth, that's going to help you resonate with your target audience, and you may have more than one target audience. And you also have to remember that no matter what you do not have control over the final product. And Felix alluded to this a little bit in his talking about media headlines and so forth. You can have a great two-page piece, and if the headline didn't do what you wanted it to do, you feel a little left, unfulfilled in that process. But you have to understand, all you can do is work on what you put into it, and the media is going to take the rest. So you have to make sure that when you're working with them, you're the credible source, the reliable source that helps them get the information right, helps them steer away from sensationalizing it and making it really relevant. Defining your goals and objectives. You really want to think from the very beginning, before you even do any media outreach, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to raise awareness of the issue? Do you want to make people understand what the impact is going to be locally? Do you want to share the success of your programs and what that can be like across the country if it's replicated? You have to think about hard what you're trying to push. If it's awareness, do you want to do a PSA campaign or go on a public affairs show, perhaps, something along those lines? Or if you're trying to get the policymakers, do you want to go on NPR or do hard-hitting news like going through CNN headline news? So think about what your issues are, what your goals are, and what you want to really do with your outreach. And then this is a very, very important piece of anything that you do with media outreach is define 3 to 4 key messages that you want to communicate so that at any time you're talking to a reporter, by the time that you finish that interview, by the time you finish that press call, by the time that the reporter has interviewed you and written everything that they need to for the newspaper article, have you said the 4 key things that you want them to take away from the conversation and that you want passed on to the target audience, to the general public? And when you're thinking about doing that outreach, look at the kind of folks that you can target. I've listed some. It's not an exhaustive list by any means, but there are some folks on here that you should pay some particular attention to, and I'll point out one right here, the public affairs directors, and you really want to think about talking to them at your local television and radio stations because they are considered the heart and the conscience of the station. They're the ones that pay attention to what's important to the community. They're the ones that really push some of those, feel-good initiatives, some of those local initiatives that you see in your hometowns on your television and radio stations. So, think about getting in touch with them because you already have someone that's receptive to what's important to your community and work with them. They can also be called community affairs directors, so don't be put off if you don't find a public affairs director at your local TV or radio station. Your real audience, the gatekeepers. No matter what you do, you have to be willing to think about this issue in terms of the journalist or the public affairs director. They're going to ask, why should I care? And you have to be ready to answer that, not from the standpoint of why you think they should care, but why they should care and why it's important for them to share this information with their consumers, with their public. And no matter what you do, you have to think about connecting to what's in the news now. If there's a big survey or a big piece of research that just came out about prisoner reentry and you know about it, take some time to think about how you can make that locally relevant, how you can put that into context for people. Because no matter what, and this sounds really vague, news is what's in the news. And so you don't really know what is going to resonate with a particular journalist or a particular reporter, but you have to keep trying constantly and connecting to the things that are out there, giving them a way to further the story beyond their initial report, helping them put a context to it. Next slide. And this list of PR tools is not by any means an exhaustive list, and These are some things that you can do without needing a lot of money and without needing, a big staff to be able to help you accomplish some of these things. Of course, there are other ideas that you can put on the table, doing video news releases, doing media tours, a variety of other things that people use every single day to garner media attention. But these are some of the pieces that you can use to take off of perhaps national news that's going on around your issue or to make your own news locally. Media advisories are opportunities for you to announce new publications or announce an event that you might be having. If you're about to celebrate the success of something and you're going to make a big deal out of it, that's a great opportunity to do an advisory out to the media, let them know what you're doing. News releases are where you really want to share important major statistics, put a context to them, and help them understand why it's important to your local community. It may be the place where you do important tips. We do a lot of different safety tips. For example, tomorrow's Halloween, so we're about providing safety tips for how parents can keep their kids safe when they're walking and going out trick or treating. So use some of those types of things and use the different times of the year or where an issue may be particularly more relevant than another time and really try to feed off of that. Long lead pitches are an opportunity for you to try to get that feature article, to try to get that piece where it really takes a holistic look at the issue of prisoner reentry and helps people understand what the issue is, what they can do about it, and what else is needed to solve the issue or to resolve the issue. Direct press contact is probably the thing that scares people the most when you talk about doing PR, but is one of the things that really can help you build credibility with journalists and reporters. You want to try to do things like letters to the editor and explain what your issue is and why you'd like to see something show up in your local paper. You can even take it a step further and do something like an editorial board meeting where you actually bring together the editors of your local newspapers and share with them background on the issue, how you feed into the issue, and why it's important locally for everyone. Additional PR tools you can use, background materials, white papers, some of the things that Felix talked about, you putting together for legislators or other target audiences can be used here in the press standpoint as well. Online newsroom, if you have a website and have the capability to be able to add an online newsroom, take a look at the national resources that are available. The videos, there's some great videos, on the Reentry Media Outreach site, and take a look at linking to those, perhaps putting some of that background material up there, doing things in PDF and so forth that a press person can go to, easily pull down, and be able to write that story with all the background that they think that they need, and be able to call you if they need additional information or want an interview. Public service announcements and advertisements we touched on quickly. That's really about helping to generate awareness and helping people find the quick things that they can do, the simple and easy steps they can do. And lastly on this slide, this is something to pay attention to, emerging media tools. Internet blogs have become a huge piece of news media now and has really become a place where people look for content. So don't overlook some of the blogs that might be, started or that you might want to develop your own and be able to inform the issue, frame the issue of prisoner reentry for people. To dive in a little bit more into the advisories and press releases, one of the pitfalls that people run into is not really knowing the accepted style for doing these two pieces, the advisory or the release, and also not knowing which one you should use at what time. So I've given you a quick sense of why you use these two different things and how you use them in concert with one another. For an advisory, you certainly want to do it leading up to your event, but when you're doing the release, you want to make sure that you're doing it the day before or the day of the event to try to encourage that last minute participation by a journalist or a reporter. Make sure that you're using the accepted style with the contact information. Engaging headline is one I want to stop on for a moment, because when you link back to Felix's comments about, having a great two-page article but the wrong headline on it, if you're giving them an engaging headline, they're less likely to want to try to make their own. So think about being creative. Think about, having a journalist mentality when you're creating that headline, and hopefully you'll come out better in the end for that. Press calls and pitches, these are just some of the quick, do's and don'ts when you're dealing with journalists and reporters. Make sure that you're always there to offer angles and ideas. Even if you're not expecting to be quoted, sometimes just giving a reporter an opportunity to follow up on an angle or an idea that may involve more than just your organization is really going to help you become a credible resource for them. And the more that you do that, the more they're willing to call back, the more that they're going to call back and ask you to be the expert, to ask you to be quoted. Really, the biggest other thing on this page is to remember to thank the reporter for a story. If you've courted that reporter and you've gotten the result that you want, make sure to say thank you, because that helps them keep coming back as well. In conducting interviews, sometimes people find the media really scary, and you have to think about it in terms of, they want the story to be just as good as you do. So, think about the things that help you do that and help you really tell your story in an engaging way. Stay on message. Think about creating sound bites. If you're unsure about how to create a sound bite, there's some great books out there that really help you figure out how to hone in on that and how to do that well. On this page, a big one for everyone to remember is there is no such thing as off the record. Anything that you say from the moment you shake a reporter's hand or you answer the telephone, you must consider the reporter can use. Even if they're telling you it's just about having a conversation up front, you want to make sure anything that you say you're willing to see in print. Here's some key things about when to get coverage. A lot of people don't really think about the fact that Monday through Thursday is the prime time for you to try to get coverage for things. Trying to do something going into a weekend likely means that very few people at a television station or at a newspaper are going to see it. If you hear someone talking about sweeps week or sweeps month, avoid those at all costs, because what they're really interested in at that point is trying to boost their ratings so that they're able to generate more advertising revenue and other revenues into the station. So unless it's really compelling breaking news, you're likely not going to get the time of day from a reporter at that point. Also, think again about the reporters and the journalists are just like you. They're not your friends and your adversaries. They're the kind of folks who need to be the third-party observers, and they need to be able to tell the story from both sides and be balanced with it, and recognize that they have bosses too. And just like we do, sometimes our bosses can nix what we have put on the table or completely take it in a different direction than you intended. So be aware of that and recognize they're people too. And when you get the media to call, this is, the time where you've done everything, you've gotten that person to call, and this is a time for you to shine, for you to really help them, get into your issue and know the information that's relevant, be able to understand that the Washington Post is an important piece of, potentially your outreach, but that small newspaper that's calling, and is a journal paper, what have you, can be just as important, because it can actually have the readers that you want to influence, even over those from the Washington Post or, some other major paper in your area. Also, think about if you're not available, you want to make sure that you have a backup or two in the event that a reporter calls, you're not at your desk. Don't leave them hanging and don't leave them wanting to go on to the next source because they didn't get an answer or a response from you. Make sure you have that backup so they can continue to call upon you. There's nothing worse for a journalist than to call and not get a response back until a day or two later. So make sure that you're there and you're credible and you're a resource for them. Lastly, I put together a few resources that are easy to read through. They're not huge cumbersome books by any means, but help you kind of craft your message, understand how to deal with the media, and work with them in a way that really gets your message out there. And one that I will highlight for you is Public Relations Kit for Dummies. That's a great book, great title, but great book in that it gives you a lot of different forms and samples of pitch letters and advisories, releases, how to create media lists, a lot of different things that will help you be able to do a really good job with your outreach.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. We have some time left. We also wanted to highlight a couple of other resources, online resources that are available specifically around the issue of reentry. And so we have some websites up that would be of interest, including the Reentry Media Outreach Campaign, which we highlighted a little bit earlier, um, and that Michelle has mentioned a couple of times. So we do have this list that's currently available. We also want to highlight the Corporation for National Community Service that is uh, is a cooperative partner of the National Crime Prevention Council on a reentry initiative. It does have a listserv that you can join, in which we do put out any new studies that are released around the issue of reentry, or any new stats that are released by federal agencies. So we have information on joining that listserv, as well as other resources that the corporation has, including some best practices and other handbooks and guidebooks with information on reentry. And that website is also listed, the Resource Center. Do we have any questions for Felix or Michelle? Again, it's *7 to unmute your phone, or if you want to raise your hand, and I will be glad to raise your hand electronically, and I will gladly address you. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay. If we don't have any questions from the field, I have some contact information for both Felix and Michelle, and it's brief, but actually, if you want more information on this presentation or for either one of them, feel free to contact me. My name is Jean Cure, and my information is on your screen right now. You'll also be getting a follow-up email from me in just a minute, and that will include an evaluation form, and so I would appreciate it if you could complete that and email that back to me, so to give us some feedback on this presentation. And I see that, okay, it's one of the things that I have a question is to get a copy of the slides, and I will gladly email that to the person who requested it. Do we have any other questions? I heard someone trying to ask something. No? Okay. We don't have any other questions for either of our presenters. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar. We hope that it was informative to you and useful to you. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to for you to participate in a future